Good morning. So today I decided to give you a screencastify of ancient Greece. We met on Google Meet a couple minutes ago, and because I wanted to make sure you understood the material, I decided to go a little more slowly through it. So I'm doing this in a couple of segments. This one is going to be on the basic geography of Greece and the Greek city-states. So when we start with the geography of Greece, Greece is a subcontinent like we saw in India. And because it is a subcontinent, that gives it a lot of similar features that we saw in the ancient Indus River Valley. But it also makes it a little different because it is not as open as you'll see here as it was in India. India had oceans, it had major seas. Greece is in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, and it is also an archipelago, which is a small chain of islands, an archipelago. And an archipelago means that you're going to be very isolated in different areas. So in the south right here is Crete. You'll have other little tiny islands like Rhodes, Kos, Theos, and so forth. Eventually, Crete develops as its own unique mini civilization before it becomes officially Greek. And that's what you learned about with the Minoans. King Minos was at the center at Knossos. His palace was a fortified palace, which meant it was strong, it was well protected, and it means that it also was very hard to defeat, break down in warfare, so to speak. So King Minos gets a reputation of being a very strong ruler on the island of Crete. Anybody who came to the island would have to go to the palace. They would have to speak with Minos. And if they angered him, there was a chance that they could be imprisoned and thrown into that labyrinth that you read about. The labyrinth, according to the myth, had a minotaur, which was a half man, half bull. It was supposedly the son of his wife who fell in love with a bull and had this half human, half bull child. And because he was so angered, he put this animal in his labyrinth beneath the palace, and anybody who angered him would get killed by this bull man beast. Really, it was a maze that people couldn't get out of, and it meant that when they couldn't get out of it, they were stuck. Either they died of starvation, they were just left there to die, or two, there was a small army, maybe about 3 or 4 men, that would just kill whoever was in the labyrinth. So Minos becomes this really ultra tough guy ruler and builds up his palace. Is very wealthy. He has all these frescoes, which are paintings on plaster walls that told stories about how great he was. And he becomes extremely strong until one of a few things happen. We're not 100% sure. Some of the stories go that the Minoans had been cursed and natural disaster befell them, and the gods were angry with Minos, and everything basically just got destroyed. A lot of the stories also talk about the natural disasters like earthquakes, that a lot of it sunk. They lost a lot of land, and people died and couldn't escape. Then there's also the theory that a lot of these people went from the island of Crete and made it to the mainland of Peloponnesus and settled in areas like Mycenae. And Mycenae, as you read about, also had a lot of strong fortified areas. They were known as warriors, and the king there welcomed them as part of his people. What we do know about the city states itself is that they are all protected. Many of them had mountains, and they were isolated because of these natural features. Because they were isolated, it meant that each of these city states created their own laws, their own rulers were in charge, they had their own money system, which meant Greek was not unified. Greece was very unique in that way. It meant that you couldn't go to one city state with the money from your own and trade. There was different money system throughout every single city state. So nothing was unified in Greece. Everything was individual. City states basically function like their own little countries. They had their own government, which meant they had their own set of laws. They had their own ruler. They had their own god or goddess that they worshiped. In Athens, it was Athena. And you'll see that in each of these city states, they become very unique because of that. So as we go through this unit, think about what makes each of these city states, or pali as they're known, unique. Why were they so different? What made them so different? And how were they able to either be strong and superior to the other pali in Greece, or were they the ones that were beat up and basically taken over by the others? And that will be what we'll talk about in our next video series.